And we're back. All right, I'm gonna do part 2 of this Karri top. I think I've figured some technical issues out. I think I have figured out a better bird's eye view of what we're doing. I got my camera a little higher. I got it to work. I've got this bodice. I have it on a cutting mat now. I have it set up. Now remember in part 1 we sewed the shoulder seams. Now I'm going to line up the the side seams, and it's looking like we're way shorter in the front than in the back. Either I cut something wrong or something's wrong in the pattern, because I'm pretty sure I cut my darts correctly. So, it happens. We're not going to make a huge deal of it. I'll show you what I'll do to sort of correct that. I'm not going to blame it on the mood pattern. I'll blame it on my cutting. But so this side here needs to be pinned, and you always want to press your darts down. And mine happen to be falling down anyway, so they are good to go. I'm just going to stick a couple pins in, and then I'll stick a couple pins on the other side. But you want to, if you're not lining up, in this case, I want to start lined up at the armpit and then have the discrepancy on the length down here, because we have a peplum that we're going to sew on, so I can trim and make everything at the bottom level. I'm just pinning this way because it's less awkward. It might be more awkward when I sew, but for right now it's less awkward to pin that way. Okay, so left side, right side, I'm going to sew both of these with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I think I can change the camera view so you can see that happening. Okay, so I'm going to start by sewing the right side. 1/2 inch seam allowance. I still have blue thread on here. I'm not going to really worry about it too much, but my needle position is not centered, and that's going to bug me, so I'm going to move that. And I'm just sewing down the side. And there is where I have this massive discrepancy. That's okay. Back stitch. I'm just going to pull it off. Gosh, I really need some little snip scissors. I don't know where mine went, but I'll use that. Okay, and other side, it's probably frowned upon, but I'm going to start at the bottom and go to the top because I don't feel like flipping my pins over, and it's not that big a deal. Okay, let me get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. My pins are just enough out of the way that I won't run them over. Oh, except maybe this one. I'll take this one out. And press your foot up. There. Okay. So now I have the right and left side seams sewn. I'm going to go back to my little cutting and pinning area here. And here is my top. And as I mentioned, this is really not level. And I'm a little bummed because I was thinking that if it were all a little bit longer, I could just have it be kind of a crop top. I feel like it's kind of big anyway, so it was just going to be this loose fitting crop top. But I'm going to have to cut the back. I'm just going to cut it to match the front. so when I add the peplum on, it doesn't get all crazy. Okay, so there's my bodice. And here's my sleeve holes. We're going to come back to these sleeves, okay? I cut my second one. I had just enough to cut my second sleeve. And I want to show you doing it one more time because I feel like you have a better idea of what I'm doing because you can see the whole thing. So I'm sewing a folded edge from here, and then I'm stopping here. This is kind of where this part ends. And that is the edge that I have to hem. However, it's very confusing because I don't really have a really great right or wrong side. So I want to make sure that I'm going to mirror image what I did on the other one. And of course I have it all pinned because I figured that out. So that's how the sleeve is going to look. And I want to make sure that that is going to go and be the opposite. Okay, cool. So I have a right sleeve and a left sleeve, and these sleeves are like crazy. I kind of love them. They're going to be like gigantic. So it's this is going to be the right side. So I'm going to put that up so I know. Actually, I'm going to put the wrong side up. And then I'm going to know that it's going to have to fold this way. I'm going to write a big W, I think, onto my fabric and chalk because I'm going to forget. So there we go. Giant W for wrong side. Now I'm going to stitch that 1/4 inch seam so I can press it and do a nice rolled edge back to the sewing machine view, starting where that kind of, you can see there's like an angle. I can't show you very well, but here we go. 1/4 inch seam allowance, which means I'm going to change my needle position. I think I had it 1.3. I'm going to sew on the edge. Again, no need for a back stitch. This is just so we have a guideline for folding it while we press it. So I'm going to show you the ironing board here. I'm not going to get it too close because I don't want to wriggle with the situation. But here is where my W for the wrong side is going to come in really handy because I had forgotten which was my wrong side, so I didn't know which way to fold it up. But because I put the W on, I know I'm going to fold it up towards the wrong side, and I'm kind of starting in the middle, and that's okay. It's just easy to grab, and I don't know if you can see anything I'm doing. But you're folding up the edge of the fabric and you're using that 1/4 inch stitch line as your guide. Mine's a little all over the place because I rushed it, but I get the idea and I want to crease it. now that my iron's hot, it's actually working. And then I'm going to start it here. There we go. Okay, so now I've got my 1/4 inch fold. I'm going to fold it a second time, the same size as my first fold. Might have to kind of stretch a little bit just to get rid of any creases, but I'm basically just, or to get rid of any bunching. Just folding a second line, there we go, so that I can hem the edge of this sleeve all the way around. And sometimes I feel like if it's starting to like make like a weird twist, what I'll do is like skip a spot and kind of go back and fill that in. If it's like a real big curve, you end up with a little bit of extra fabric and you kind of have to tuck it. So that's one of the tricks that I do. And turning till I get to the end. Okay, so that gives us a nice pressed edge. And let me get that out of the way. And my scissors are out of the way. And I'm not using a serger today just because I'm assuming that most people don't have a serger. But anytime like you're doing the side seams or the shoulder seams, you can always serge those after you sew them just to even everything out. And I might do that later, but I'm skipping that step for this live stream. Okay. Place it under, lower my presser foot. I do want a back stitch at the end. Here, I'll give you a better view. And kind of... And you're sewing closer to the folded edge, okay? I wonder if I can bring... Oh, I worry that it's going to come undone. All right. I was going to say I sew closer to the inner edge of the hem versus the outer edge. I want to be a little bit closer to the inner side so it doesn't like unfold. So here it's feeling like, there we go. So there's a little extra bit of fabric, but I sew right over that and you'll never see it on the outside. So here is also another instance of that where I'm not really sure how I wound up. There we go. So I can kind of refold that before I sew it to make sure that I only have the two. And then like right here, I'm getting this little bunchy. I'm going to just flatten it because it's going to be on the inside. You're not going to be able to tell from the outside, but I want to sew over it so it doesn't keep pushing it ahead. And there it is. done. Oh, I forgot to backstitch. Little backstitch. Lift my presser foot. Sucked in my fabric. That's okay. Cut my thread. Okay, so now I want to show you these slightly tricky sleeves. So the pattern, I feel like, and the instructions that they give on their website are not super clear. And again, these are free instructions, so you can't really blame them. But they're telling you to overlap to a certain point. So like this pointy part here overlaps a little bit of, so you kind of have to put them around. There we go. Oh my God, I still am like having a brain fart about how this is done. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So it's like right from here to here is where you're going to overlap the sleeve. And then that way, this finished edge is the only thing that's going to be showing, because this raw edge is going to get sewn to the shirt. So I think that'll make a little bit more sense once we sew it in. But you've got these really nice, beautiful, almost like bell sleeves. I think I called them tulip sleeves before, but I'm not sure if that would be the right name. But basically they're wrapped around, belling out, and kind of open here. But you'll see, if you've ever sewn sleeves before, the sleeve shape is reminiscent of a real sleeve shape. So that's when you kind of know you've done it correctly. So it's like the point is underneath and it wraps up and overlaps for about 3 inches, like that. Okay? And if you see, I've got my bodice here. And one sleeve is going to go in here. And one sleeve is going to go over here. Like that. But first, I think I want to baste my overlap. And maybe, I think I want to baste along here, so this kind of stays closed. Okay, so I'm gonna baste along this edge, the 3 inches where it overlaps, and then I'm probably gonna just follow the hemline to baste the bottom of the sleeve to the top of the sleeve. So you know what, I'm gonna add a pin so make sure that's flat, and I'm gonna do that on both of them, and then we can insert some sleeves. So here, let's get this one too. Baste that edge here, and then keeping this flat, I'm going to follow the blue stitching for when I did the hemming. Okay. So just basting along the edge. I suppose you don't really need to backstitch when you do that, but it was just habit, I did it. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to follow this little hem stitching. And if you come off of the stitching, it's not that big a deal. Don't worry about it. so now the sleeve is sewn into a circle. I'm going to pull it off. And if you can imagine, over my shirt, that I kind of like these sleeves. As vague as the instructions were, I think they're going to be sort of cool for a summery top. Okay, so there's one. Let me just do the other one real quick. I feel like I can get this a little higher. And then you might have, don't you love live? You can see all the weird faces I make. Okay. A little better. I feel like there's a little bit higher of a view. Okay. First, sewing where the overlap is along the edge. Okay, and now along where the hemmed edge is, I'm just going to try and follow that hemmed stitching line. Making sure I'm not sewing it to the back of the sleeve. That's always an issue if you do that. And pull it off. Okay. So now I've got these sleeves. We're going to go back to the bodice. And I want the bodice to be inside out, which is what I have. You can see the extra fabric from the darts. You can see my stitch lines. You know this is inside out. We're going to line up which sleeve goes where. So that's going to go there. That's going to go there. And you want to put... Oh, it's actually going to be the opposite. So, because this is right side out and this is inside out. So we're going to swap places. And this is going to go inside so that right sides are together. So I'm going to reach in here actually and line up the bottom of the sleeve. You know, I'm going to like kind of refold here and pin, I think. So let's see, make this a little clearer here. This is going to be a pinned spot because it's going to line up with my side seam. This is going to be a pinned spot. It's going to line up with my shoulder seam. So I want to stick a pin on both of these spots. So right here at the top, that'll make it easier. And then right here at the bottom. And then now I can open up my bodice. And line up the edges. So here's my side seam. And here is my pin. They need to go together. Okay, and then looking in my sleeve hole, here is my top of my sleeve where there's a pin, and here is, it's not really marked that well, but pin that to the shoulder seam. Now the idea is to get the rest of this to fit right in that sleeve hole, and actually that side looks perfect. That side actually looks pretty good too. Okay, cool. So I'm going to get a bunch of pins. I hope this doesn't look too much like just a lump of fabric. You can sort of see what I'm doing. So pinning in the big circle in your sleeve hole. There's one side. And you really want to pay close attention to keeping the edges lined up really well. Okay. And that looks like it's going to be pretty darn good. Okay. One more pin. And usually, if you have any extra, you can kind of just pull it and it will ease itself into fitting together. I think I need one more pin. Okay, so there's one sleeve pinned. Now you have this, just to orient what's going on, you have the head, you have this sleeve hole here. We're going to put that on the sewing machine and just sew in a big circle, and then we'll take a look at what this giant crazy sleeve looks like. Okay, here we go. So if you've got a free arm on your machine, you can remove the extra piece so you can put the sleeve right on here. It doesn't matter where you start it because it's just a big circle. Maybe don't start it, I don't know, right in the front. I'm going to start in the back because that's where you'll end up back stitching. So maybe start it in the back, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm going, and I'm just going to back stitch because it's habit. And I'm going to try not to run my pins over. I'm keeping about a 1/2 inch seam allowance so the edge of my foot is lined up with the edge of the fabric. I might be doing slightly bigger than a 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8. Realize I hadn't set this back to centered, so it's a slightly bigger than 1/2 inch. And you're just kind of like, as you go around, you're just moving the fabric as you go. And if you come across threads, just cut those. Oh. Pin's falling on me. Should be coming back to where we started. There we go. All right, so there's my threads for where we started. I'll snip those while I can. Remove my last pin and sew that last bit. Cut that. Ooh, let's take a look. It's always very exciting to take a look at the first sleeve. You know you always have to do another one, but I always take a look at the first one. Okay, so I'm pulling it out, and it's inside out. Oh my goodness. The suspense is killing me. That is the back. Ah. Okay. All right. It seems a little weird. I don't know. Maybe it'll look better on. Maybe I didn't line it up the way I was supposed to. I don't know. I think I did it the right way, but it just seems like it's a little weird. Maybe it's just because I'm laying it flat. So there's one sleeve. Not looking terrible. And we're going to put the other sleeve in. However, before I do that, I'm going to just talk about the peplum. So I might just skip that and do that on my own for the sake of speeding this video up. We need to put the peplum on. I ran out of fabric in this print, so I'm going to do just a solid black cotton peplum. So what that means is I'm going to do this little piece that hangs off. And the pattern piece looks like that. It needs to be cut on the fold, and you need 2 of them. So I have not cut mine. So I'm going to cut those right now, and we will go ahead and, yeah, cutting 2 on the fold, 1 for the front, 1 for the back. It's not lined. It's just going to be double folded, hemmed on the bottom. Okay, here we go. I've just got some soft black cotton that I grabbed that I thought would work. So I'm going to roll out a little bit. Now, I talked a little bit about in part 1 about putting the selvages together whenever you're doing, you're cutting out your fabric. So that's how it comes off of the bolt. So right now I have mine in the bolt. I'm going to keep it on the bolt until I cut it, obviously. But I'm placing the fold of the fabric over the edge of the pattern that says place on the fold on the fold of the fabric. It's opposite the selvage. So for sake of time, I am going to, and look, I can move it over here too. So I don't have to cut off that edge. I'm not even going to pin, I'm just going to cut. There's 1. There's 2. And cuts, I mean, not pieces. I gotta move this down so I can get it onto the fold again and cut my second one. It's kind of a weird piece that doesn't allow you to be very conscientious on saving fabric, but it is what it is. We want this curved piece that's almost going to wind up kind of biased because of the way pattern piece curves. So there's my second one. All right, let me clear this off. Clear this off. Clear my scraps. And when you open it up, you have this nice piece here for the peplum. And you're going to put the second one right on top. And you've got to put right sides together, which I have. It's hard to tell, but that's how I want it. Slightly better quality on this side of the cotton, so that's how I'm going to do it. And I'm matching up this straight edge here and this straight edge here. And those are going to get sewn together. And then this becomes a circle that's going to get sewn to the bottom of the shirt. So let's pin. Like that. Pin. pin and pin. And then I'm going to sew across here and sew across here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to show you that while I do it. Second one. Okay. Let's see. We'll go back. We've got our peplum. And now it's just like this big round piece that this is going to get sewn to the bottom of the shirt. I can get my shirt to show you what that sort of looks like. My one-sleeved shirt. I don't know if I'm loving the black on the bottom, but yeah, it's gonna be fine. Okay, so that is how that goes. And the sleeve is here. It's almost gonna look like a big dress. It's gonna be interesting. Before I sew the shirt to the peplum, I think I'm going to hem the bottom of the peplum just so it's a smaller piece when I go to hem it. I'm going to hem it the same way I hemmed the curved sleeve, and I don't think I want to hem it in light blue. So I'm going to change my thread real quick so y'all can watch me do that. Hopefully I can do it fast. So I'll take the light blue off. Get something that matches that a little bit better. Spin it around. Get an empty bobbin. Thread the machine. Close that up. Use my teeth to cut the thread because I am a classy lady and I can do that when I'm not teaching people in real life. Try not to do that when I'm teaching people in real life because then my spit gets on the thread and that's just weird. But I can do it when I'm teaching you online. Okay. Oh, look at that. I was about to run out of my blue bobbin anyway. Put this one in. Find my cover. Yay. Okay. So again, we do that 1/4 inch stitching around the whole bottom edge of the peplum. That's going to be our fold guideline. Can you tell I like sewing fast? Oh, there we go. So here, just have to go to here. I've got some threads hanging off that I will cut. And then back around. Okay. Snip. And then I'm going to use that fold line to iron all the way around the bottom of my peplum. And then I will iron it or fold it 2 times. Got my extra sleeve. I should hang on to that. And let's see. You want to fold towards the wrong side all the way around. Warm up your iron, get it nice and hot, and start folding and pressing along that 1/4 inch stitch line. There we go. Can you see what I'm doing? Or you just see my butt? Hard to see what I'm doing, huh? Ooh! Laptop falling off a stand. I'll just leave it. Be careful of your fingers when you're doing this, especially if you're doing it fast like I am. Don't iron your fingers. Okay, back around to where I started. I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna, when I sew it, fold it the second time. You probably would want to fold it again and press it, but I'm just gonna, for the sake of time, fold my second time as I go. And it's probably not gonna be as nice as if I pressed it first, but I'm gonna do my best. Just making sure to fold it only as much as you folded it the first time. Fold it that much the second time. So it winds up being 2 1/4 inch folds. Hopefully I'm coming back around to where I started soon. I think I am. Oh my goodness. I got a ways to go. Oh, looks like I didn't even iron this part. This is why on sewing videos they do the high speed. Otherwise, you're just sewing forever on something like this when it's live. But that's okay. Getting a little twisted. And I'm back to where I started. Cut it and bring it back to my cutting table. Okay. I want the seams to be on the side, and I'm lining it up on the bottom of this. I don't love how this is looking, but you're gonna get the idea. I can move the other sleeve for now. Side seam lines up with side seam. How's it gonna fit? Looking like it's not gonna be bad. It looks like it's gonna fit okay. And since this is the right side and this is the right side, I'm going to flip that up onto there and kind of put the peplum around the top. And I'm going to pin the side seam to the side seam over here. And I'm going to pin the side seam to the side seam over here. And then, just like a sleeve, I'm going to pin the rest of it. And hopefully it fits on there. How are we doing? I'm going to back it up a little bit, take this one out. See if I can get it to fit on here. It's looking like the top is slightly bigger than the bottom. And if it winds up that it's like very different, one of the things you could do is take a little dart in this back. I'm probably gonna have the same problem in the front though. Let's see. The front actually seems to be okay. So just see how close you are. Some of the things that will make it not fit perfectly are, your cutting, which mine is always leaving something to be desired. And then your seam allowances. So if your seam allowances aren't quite consistent, things don't match up. The front matches perfect, which is weird. That makes me think that my back seam allowance is not big enough. So that's an easy fix. Let me just pin these. More. Okay. And my sides are aligned. I don't know. If I ease it a little bit in the back, it's coming together. I don't think I need to. But if you wanted to, you could just take the seam allowance here, make that slightly smaller so it would match your peplum, but there's not enough difference here. Okay, so I've got my waist here. Looks big, but I think it's fine. I'm going to go around in a big circle on my sewing machine. Again, I will take my free arm off, and I want to start in the back. So I'm going to look for my back seam. There it is. And I'm going to sew in a big circle. Taking my pins out as I go. Looked out the window and got distracted and completely went off track, so I backed it up there to get back on track. Don't look out the window. It's hard. It's a very nice day. Ouch. Back to where I started. All right, let's take a bird's eye view here. Put my free arm back and oh, well, you know, I think the reason I feel like this is looking so big is because it's meant to have like a little tie. I think that is all right. So I don't hate it as much as I thought I was going to. And I just want to say, like, this is kind of my muslin, or my toile as they call it, my practice version. You know, there are some tweaks that I would obviously make. I didn't even try this on before I put the sleeve on, before I put this on. I would want to do that. I mean, this is just a live stream, and I think I will kind of figure out how that will all work. But the last thing is obviously putting the other sleeve on and then putting some bias tape around the edge. And here's what I'm going to do, because it's 5 o'clock. And this is the second hour. I'm going to do a video, a regular video, so you can kind of see what I'm doing a little bit closer up, to put the bias tape around the neck edge. I'm going to probably just use some pre-made bias tape that I have, and do that. And I'll link to that video because I think that's a cool thing to have for a video. Anyway, I'm going to put the other sleeve on just on my own, and I'll make the tie. I can do the video of making the tie as well. So you have that. But I feel good about this top. I'm going to try it on. I might play around with it a little bit. I do just want to say, if you wind up and it ends up being a little bit too big here, you can always take it in even when you have the peplum on. You could turn it and take some in because you have this seam and the seam here. So you could bring it in a little bit if it winds up being too big. If up here is too big, you would want to adjust that before you put the sleeve on. And I did not even try it on to adjust it. So if you are feeling like, if you're making this, you know, it's always best to try your bodice on before your sleeve. I probably should have mentioned that, but I didn't. Them's the breaks. Thanks for tuning into my first, I guess, actually my second, since this was a part 2. My light's doing weird things. It's giving me like third eye energy down to my head. Thanks for tuning in. I hope it wasn't too painful. I do want to continue these. They're going to be a work in progress. And if you're watching this on the recording later, I hope it's helpful. I hope you can stop and start. Do look at the link so you can learn how to finish up the neck edge with some bias tape. Actually, this one has some bias tape neck edge as well. All right. Thanks. Bye.